Out of the 6.6 billion smartphones in the world, around 85% run on Google's Android operating system. No, that's not just some wild guess. Google may be big, but acquiring that kind of market share is possible through unlawful means. It's no wonder then that the company was slapped with a fine worth almost $5 billion. And even after years of battle, Google has failed to get the charges dropped. Let's dive in. First, it's important to understand what the fine being imposed is really about. This dispute between one of the biggest companies in the world and the European Union Commission centers on contracts that force phone manufacturers such as Samsung and Sony to bundle several Google apps together on Android phones. In its 2018 ruling, the panel accused Google of 3 different illegal practices that contributed to the dominance of its search engine. You might be thinking about what's harmful in that. Then again, that's how these big companies exploit their comparative advantage. The industry even has a name for this practice, known as tying. Being the big bully it is, Google forced mobile manufacturers to keep the Google Play Store, where users can download other Android apps, as a must-have application, as users expect to find it pre-installed on their phones. That's all good because Google Play Store cannot be downloaded from anywhere lawfully. Moving on, where does the problem actually lie then? Well, the thing is, when the manufacturers install the Google Play Store on the phones they make, their contracts with Google force them to also install the Google search engine and the Chrome browser. Now you must be starting to see where the problem lies. These contracts that force the mobile manufacturers to put the Google apps in the phones reduce the incentives of manufacturers to pre-install competing search and browser apps, as well as the incentives of users to download such apps. This ultimately reduces the ability of rivals to compete effectively with Google. EU claimed that Google paid some significant manufacturers and operators only if the Google search app was pre-installed. Now, it's not like the manufacturers are not at fault here. Companies like Apple and Samsung get paid billions of dollars by Google, so its search engine is the default option on most browsers and smartphones. To provide a little context into the number we're mentioning here, a 2014 lawsuit shows that Google reportedly paid Apple over $1 billion to be the main search engine on iPhones. This was back in 2014. That amount has skyrocketed to an estimated $15 to $20 billion since then. It's no wonder the company has such a huge monopoly, with 85% of total smartphones being powered by the Google search engine. The numbers are even more staggering in the European Union, where Google's market dominance exceeds 90%. For Google's then desktop-based search business, the emergence of smartphones posed an existential danger. As a result, the IT giant strong-armed phone manufacturers into placing its search engine at the top of their products. All Google had to do was shower them with cash. Barry Lin, the author of Cornered, The New Monopoly Capitalism, compares Google's behavior to a railroad that steers its riders to stores that the railroad company also owns. Crazy, isn't it? In 3 investigations spanning more than a decade, the EU's Competition Commission has now fined the search engine a total of 8.25 billion euros for antitrust violations. Next up, let's have a look at how it all began. After French legal search engine ejustice.fr, British pricing comparison website Foundum, and Microsoft-owned Chow claimed that Google's tactics unfairly harm rivals, the EU launched its probe against the company in 2010. But it wasn't until 2015 that the authorities formally charged Google with breaking antitrust laws. The first antitrust fine imposed by the EU concerned Google's preference for its own products over those of its rivals in search results. After analyzing the results of 1.7 billion actual Google search searches, or around 5.2 gigabytes of data, the Commission found that, on average, Google only displayed results from rival online shopping services on the 4th page of its results. Placing Google's product substantially ahead of its competitors was essential to the shopping service's success, because even on a desktop, the top 10 generic search results on page 1 typically receive around 95% of all clicks on generic search results. The very first 6 results receive 35% of all clicks. The trend is even worse for searches on mobile phones. The Commission found that Google was dominant in general internet search markets in all 31 countries in the European Economic Area, with a market share of about 90%. Due to Google's unethical actions, traffic to Google's comparison shopping service surged dramatically, by 45 times in the UK, for example, while rivals had very significant long-lasting traffic losses. According to the Commission, the €2.4 billion punishment was calculated based on Google's earnings from its comparison shopping service in the 13 countries where the violation occurred. Lastly, the European Union's crackdown on Android bundling. In its decision against Android from 2018, the EU's Competition Commission found that Google had abused its dominant position by placing anti-competitive contractual restrictions on mobile device manufacturers, some cases starting as early as 2011. The main points of Google's legal defense were that the Commission had wrongly assessed the company's position as the mobile market leader. The investigation went on for years, and in 2018, the company was fined a record-breaking €4.3 billion, which the EU's General Court reduced to €4.1 billion on 14 September. This confirmation is a serious blow for Google and strengthens the position of the EU's antitrust antitrust advocates who have targeted the abuses of big tech. As well as being sanctioned with a massive fine for the breaches, Google was ordered 4 years ago to stop the violations. Over the past 5 or more years, the EU's Antitrust Division has been actively examining Google, resulting in numerous enforcements. Additionally, in 2019, a case involving AdSense, Google's search ad brokering business, resulted in a $1.7 billion fine. Its appeal is still ongoing. Google's ad tech is the subject of an ongoing investigation by the Competition Commission that was initiated in June 2021. Recently, Reuters reported that the EU had widened its investigation. In other news, this antitrust fine that the EU has slapped Google with isn't something new. Did you know Microsoft faced similar issues with authorities in the EU? Because of its sad demise recently, just mentioning Internet Explorer brings a tear to our eyes. However, there was a time when the search engine was everything Google is today. Microsoft used to be highly associated with big tech and antitrust. Even now, it's the example in the definition of monopolization on the Federal Trade Commission website, which details how Microsoft used its monopoly on computer operating systems to exclude and harm competitors, especially the nascent web browser market. In 1995, Microsoft began bundling its new Internet Explorer browser with Windows 95. In addition to making Internet Explorer the default online browser on Macs and Windows 95 machines, Microsoft also made it incredibly hard to install a competing web browser and virtually impossible to uninstall Internet Explorer. Even though it was arguably inferior to some other browsers, Internet Explorer was by far the most popular browser for years, accounting for about 95% of the market at its peak. Just imagine not being able to install another browser and using Internet Explorer for the rest of your life. Horrifying, isn't it? That was extremely petty behavior by Microsoft. The company was sued in 1998 and later fined billions of dollars. It was asked to change its ways, including making it easier for third-party browsers to be compatible with the Windows operating system. Microsoft was also asked to separate into 2 companies, one for the operating system and one for everything else. However, Microsoft was able to overturn the original decision. Next up, Facebook is facing similar problems with antitrust laws. While Microsoft didn't change much due to its monopoly and weak regulations back then, times are different now. Antitrust laws are clear, and even the biggest companies aren't helpless. In December 2020, the Federal Trade Commission and 46 states sued Facebook, accusing the firm of buying up competitors, mainly WhatsApp and Instagram, to liquidate competition in the social media industry. While the federal court threw the case out after 6 months, now, after providing evidence, the case can move forward, which is a huge win for FTC. Facebook has acquired over a dozen similar companies, including developer app Snap2 for $70 million in 2011, messaging company Beluga in 2011 for approximately $30 million, and Onavo, a mobile analytics company. Lastly, even the biggest company on the planet is not safe from antitrust lawsuits. $2.65 trillion. That's the market capitalization of Apple. Yeah, that's a big number, and as we have established by now, the bigger the company, the bigger the chances of unlawful activities. The Justice Department's Antitrust Division has been investigating Apple since 2019 and is now gearing up to slap the company with a similar lawsuit as Google and Facebook. Critics have complained about Apple's long-standing policy of taking a 30% cut on most purchases made on the App Store, and in October 2020, an investigation by the House Antitrust Subcommittee found Apple has monopoly power over the smartphone app market. Do you think big tech has unnecessary power that needs to be regulated? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for daily updates. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.